For those who don't know me, my name is Eva Berbudez Zimmerman, and if you're wondering why I'm up here instructing you how to do things, set aside my background of being a candidate. My real background is being a campaign manager. So I got started, like most of you, volunteering and just passionate about wanting to change things in your community. I worked for Conferg, so I went from volunteer extraordinaire, worked for Conferg on organizing for environmental rights and environmental justice. From Conferg, then people took notice. They're like, oh, she's really good at door knocking and canvassing. And then slowly scaled up into political organizing and community organizing. I managed a senatorial campaign at the age of 22. From that, got notice again. If you're in it long enough, you hop from campaign to campaign. So campaign in Hartford for DTCs, campaign in Washington, D.C. when I worked in D.C. For Congressman Rangel, campaign in New York for Congressman Rangel for his congressional seat. And then from there, after he got indicted, long story, obviously I was not part of that scandal. You should pay your taxes if you're the chair of Ways and Means, that's that lesson. I got to work on Obama's campaign, so I was very, very fortunate that someone recommended my name. They shipped me off to Las Vegas, and I was in charge of the Chester County District, in charge of 100 people. It was everything you can imagine on TV is not real. Think of that plus, 10 times crazier. A presidential campaign for people who are political junkies is the Mac Daddy. To see it happen, to feel like you're part of something so important and above you is very fortunate. Be it a volunteer or working professionally, I highly recommend getting involved this time around because we really need to get Trump out. So this campaign training tonight is not just concentrated on what are you going to do this election season as a council person or as someone who's running in a municipal campaign. It's also guided to people who, in the behind the scenes in the background, do a lot of the grunt work. So too many times I see campaign trainings that are held by, I shall not name people, that are statewide, but they concentrate on state rep campaigns or statewide campaigns, and they forget about the small towns that you're running on a slate. You don't really have a budget. You're not like Bridgeport or Hartford. You're not raising $10,000, $20,000. You're running bottom of the ticket. That's not the reality. So I want to kind of hone in. Please feel free to interrupt me at any moment and ask questions of what's on your mind? How should I guide this conversation? This layout is awkward because I feel like it's more like a roundtable discussion. I have materials that I brought and examples of some leaflets, depending on how far you are with your campaign. I did bring some example booklets. Every piece of material that I have that I got from other campaign trainings done by other professionals, I have an electronic version, so I can share that with your DTC chair, and that way I can email it to you, and then you have access to all of this. This is not proprietary. I'm not hoarding just for myself and making sure we have to share the knowledge. So the biggest booklet I have is the PCCC. If you ever heard of Democracy for America, they have a wonderful booklet. The PCCC is more guided to progressive ideals. There's campaign trainings galore. Doesn't matter what kind of the Democratic, conversation you're part of. You don't have to necessarily be a progressive to get something out of a campaign training from the Progressive Campaign Committee. DFA, more progressive values, but little, not as extreme as PCCC. DFA and PCCC, by the way, have trainings year-round. If you're ever in need of another training, you feel like I need something where people do this every single year, just sign up, you go to their websites, they're free. The only cost to you is the transportation to wherever they're having their training. Democracy for America tends to have them statewide. The first one I went to was in Farmington a few years back, so they have a list online. Other organizations, nonprofits that have trainings, Our Revolution, Change, Move has trainings. Let's see, I know I'm missing, well, our Connecticut Dems have trainings and they're going on, every single month they have something going on. And if you're not familiar with VAN, Voter Activation Network, the software that manages your list of who's registered to vote, it goes through an algorithm, then you should definitely do the online version of that training. And if you can't do it online because you're not tech savvy and you want an in-person version, don't fret. They will come to you if you have a small group. They will come down to your town and do a hands-on training for you. And that's all through CT Dems. So if you go to the CT Dems website, you make a request, or if your chair decides to send an email, that's accessible anytime. So backtrack. Who here is a candidate? Is that everyone? Who's not a candidate? Okay, everyone. Wow, so I take back what I said about the behind the scenes. Everyone's a candidate. Sorry guys, sorry, this is not catered to you at all. So congratulations, you're a candidate. If you're a candidate and you haven't started door knocking or you don't have any kind of structure, good luck. Sorry to sound harsh. What is it? I'm hoping that at this point, you know at least your target universe. I'm hoping that you've sat down and had a conversation with your slate and you figured out some basic messaging. So fill me in really quickly. Where are you as a party, and just chime in.
Well, actually, that was one of my big questions. As a slate, we're all individual candidates. I'm a newbie here, so I might not really want to start this conversation. But how cohesive and unified should your platform be, or can you be all over the place?
Well, so we just got this up this week, and
You had your caucuses 2 weeks ago.
yeah, right.
Yep.
So and we just emailing, boards, come up with your message or what exactly your platform so to be. So each board is actually working on it, and I think we're just about there.
Okay. So that's helpful. Where's the flip chart?
Oh, right behind you over here.
Well, is there, everyone can see this one? This is
Yeah.
okay. And well, this is fine. This is fine.
And we will now we're targeting sorry.
Okay.
So we'll just talk about that.
If you didn't have a target, I'd be a little more concerned.
Yeah.
Summer's almost over, but that's good. That's good. You don't necessarily, as a slate, so going back to your comment/question, how do you gauge your messaging depending on being a slate or being a candidate? I'm assuming because of the size of your town, it doesn't make much sense as a person running for Board of Selectmen. If you're not running for top of the ticket, in this case, select person, you should be in a slate. It's just way too hard. It's my rule of thumb is if you're someone in town that is extremely well known, doesn't matter what position, what open, I guess, not even if it's not even open. Let's say you're gonna run against an incumbent and you know it's a hard road ahead and you need the support from your slate. If you have name recognition and you're able to raise more than $10,000 and you're not running for select person, then have your own candidate. And the reason that's my rule of thumb is because if you're bringing that much cash into your own campaign, that means that you have to share that money with everyone else. So if you're gonna be very helpful and you're gonna, with that team spirit in mind, you acknowledge that you can raise that much money by yourself, but you're okay that every last dime is gonna be allocated and decided by your fellow DTC, then okay, stay with the slate, raise all the money you'd like, but if you know you can raise that money and you wanna be a little bit not stingy or particular, independent, that's a great word, independent. If you want to be independent about your election and you can raise more than 10 grand and you're running for zoning or assessments or Board of Ed, then have your own candidate committee. Have your own candidate committee. Because the minute you go into that DTC room in your DTC meeting and someone's having a conversation, well, Joe raised $500, but Susie raised $1,000. I raised $10,000, and then you find out you only get $1,000 allocated to your campaign. You don't want to walk out of there sour. But for most people, you don't raise $10,000 when you're running for zoning or board of selectmen or board of education. It's when you're running for board of selectmen, when you're running for top of the ticket, that you're raising 100 or 20 or 30, big numbers. So with that in mind, and you're talking about messaging, that's where you are. The project that I've been taught that almost every campaign school always refers back to is message in a box. Us on them on us on us, them on them. It's organizing thoughts here. Don't overthink it. It's basically, what are they saying about themselves? So they're saying, we are the Republican Party. Make America great again. We're saying, oh, environmental is so beautiful and we have to save the environment, because that's how Democrats usually tend to talk so much, right? That's us. We don't do one Make America Great Again one-liners, but we want to have a sense of what we think they're going to be putting out there and how we're going to combat that. We want to have a sense of who are we, not only as a slate, but who am I as a candidate. You should do this project, one version as a slate, as the party, and then one version for yourself. And this is very helpful when you're trying to figure out, what am I going to say on the door? Who do I represent? What is my, my one-liner, my tag? What am I passionate about? Obviously, you're all running for a reason. So there must be something that drew you in. Not everyone is voluntold. Some people are when you're running. Maybe you're trying to fill a seat because no one else is willing to put themselves out there. But if that's your case and you're trying to fill a seat and you're just a warm body because you want to fill the slate, take it as serious as everyone else. Take yourself seriously and other people will take you seriously. By the end of this campaign, you'll understand that even if you're a body warmer and you want to fill the slate completely, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work. And by you putting in the work as much as someone who has a 100% chance of winning, you're bringing more people to go vote. You're registering people, and the chances of you winning completely as a slate are much higher than just one person doing it solo. So that's what it comes down to. So when you're talking about yourself and you're doing this on us, you want to get a sense, am I a mother? Am I a father? Do I have a small business? What is my profession? Try to build your narrative. How are you going to tell your story condensed to a minute and a half at a door so that someone doesn't slam the door in your face? Well, you got to get really good at little sound bites. I'm a doctor, or I'm a nurse, I'm a teacher, I'm a stay-at-home mom, I raise a family, I balance my budget for my family. These are all things that matter. It doesn't matter what you do. You can be someone who's a parent and that's your profession, or someone who is a lawyer, or you went to Ivy League, or you didn't. It's all about how do you express yourself and how can you give that and how can you connect with the person while you give your story. So everyone has a story. Them on them, it's preparing you for what they might say out there, how they might speak negatively about the DTC, or maybe they're going to say that they did something spectacular, they paved the roads, or they got more money this year. I don't know what it is, but they're going to say something, and you want to be prepared as a DTC to say, well, they're going to say this, but they actually did this. So you have to be prepared at the door. You want to pivot to what you're actually going to be doing and what they didn't do. It's not necessarily talking negatively about them. It's pointing out very specific examples of how they're not efficient, or this is why you're running. Because if you don't compare, if you don't contrast, then why is someone going to vote for you and not vote for the incumbent? You have to show them, you have to give them a reason why. Us on them, we will say, oh, well, the Republican Party has been a seat warmer. They haven't done anything here. Shout some things out. What have they done? That's not, you just can't say nothing. You could say nothing, but back it up with something.
the Board of Ed.
That's major. They cut our education budget. So us on them, that right there can be on your mailer. You know, you don't have to say the Republican Party. You don't have to be that harsh, because I know in small town living in Newtown, they hate negative campaign. They meaning the voters. They absolutely detest it. So you have to frame it in a way, you know, unfortunately, because our education budget was cut, we have to, you know, shut this, or, you know, we have to do more with less. But the Democratic Party is going to do X, Y, and Z. Them on us, oh man, they're going to say everything in the kitchen sink. They want to, you know, give all your money away to welfare, and they think that everything's free, and they want to raise your taxes. They're going to say that. So how are you prepared as a candidate and as a slate to basically rebut and you know, preempt in your conversation? You're framing, I got to go into organizing terms here. Yeah. It's framing a narrative. So if you're not preempting, if you're the first person at their door, you're the first conversation that they've had this election season, you have a very special assignment. You have the ability to prepare them about your narrative, but also prepare them for all the things that they're going to say bad about you. So we call it inoculation. You're going to inoculate them. And then that way, when that other person, that Republican or other candidate comes through their door, they're going to say, oh no, I spoke to my candidate, and they said really amazing things, but they warned me that the Republicans are going to say that we're going to raise their taxes, and this person told me that that's not the case. So you want to make sure that you're having a conversation that leads to questioning, especially when you're talking to purple households. If you're having a conversation with your diehard Dems, your prime voters, those who vote every single election, no matter what, and obviously they tend to vote Dem, they've never altered their voter registration card, then you're just going to do us on us. You're going to talk about your message. Don't even bother about them. They don't exist. You don't even mention them. But when you're talking to an affiliated, when you're talking to independents, when you're talking to purple households, then inoculate them. Prepare them for whatever the Republicans are going to say about you, what you're going to say about the Democratic Party, and then pivot back to what am I about, what do I have to say, what is my message. Somehow you got to condense this into 5 minutes. I know it sounds like a lot, but it goes very quickly at the door. The more that you do it, the more natural it becomes, and then you're going to say, like, I'm an expert. I can do this every day. Tomorrow I can do it in my sleep. You're going to be talking in your sleep, your campaign talk. So that's where you want to make it secondhand, make it natural. Do not bring any notes on what you say because you're the candidate. Usually when you're door knocking for someone else, you have notes of what to say, and that's okay. You might not have all the answers, but as a candidate, if you have a leave behind your walk card, you can bring that. If you don't, that shouldn't deter you from starting to door knock. You don't need paper. You're the candidate. Those are all tools. You can start door knocking tomorrow. Just cold call or cold door knocks. Hi, I'm running for X, Y, and Z. I'm really excited that I'm running because I'm a mother and I've been part of this community for 20 years and we need to see change. Later, when you have some funding and you have a leave behind, you have a walk card, maybe a slate piece with all the pictures there, then that's a good reminder with the election day. Thank you. With the election day, who you are, the name of the candidate, your candidacy, line A, it's just a tool to remind them what's happening, but you definitely don't need it. If you don't want to wait for that walk piece, maybe it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks before you even get there, you can go ahead and print out your own business card. On one side of the business card, put your name, what you're running for. Make sure you always have on everything the attribution. The attribution is that little line on the bottom saying paid for by, treasurer is. If you don't even add that to your business card, that is illegal. Someone can call you out, report you to seat, you get fined, the campaign gets fined. Please make sure that anything that's printed, even though you're doing it from home, you have to have the attribution. You can say made in-house to point out that you didn't purchase it through Vistaprint, you didn't pay anyone, but it's made in-house for your attribution. If it matters, I know for a lot of candidates, they want to make sure that it's printed with a union printer, and if they have that little bug, it's called a bug, that design that shows that it was done by a union printer. If you're going to use a union print shop, then make sure they have the bug. If you're not, and it's going to be in-house, say in-house, so that way SEEK knows. And then if you're not going to use either, just also make sure you have the attribution down below. One side of the business card can be basic information. The other side, please add the date of the election. A lot of people forget that on a business card, you should add the date of the election, because this is going to serve as a reminder to the voter when they're going to vote. Every piece of lit, every piece of information that's out there should highlight your row A, the Democratic row, and highlight the fact that the election is going to be on the 5th. It's kind of silly if you don't. You're missing an opportunity. So with messaging, once you kind of have this a little bit more down packed, when you feel comfortable with that, you can transition into doing speeches, doing house parties, larger gatherings. You shouldn't be doing messaging or speeches unless you feel confident enough and comfortable enough to do it, because then you're setting yourself up to embarrass yourself. There are reasons why sometimes candidates say no to debates. Usually for bottom of the ticket, there aren't any debates. That's left for selectmen or higher positions. I don't know if your town traditionally has debates here.
We've done years ago, we had some debates, but mostly it's just a debate for like mayor candidates.
Okay. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about prepping for a debate. Don't worry about prepping for a conversation or speech longer than 3 minutes. You're not running for governor. Just remember that. It is okay not to have all the answers. You're going to get some crazy questions out there. Now with the national narrative, the conversations on Medicare for all, the conversations on immigration, you're going to get those questions at the doors. When I was on council and I was canvassing, lucky for me, this is before Trump, when I had people who asked me about abortion and pro-life versus pro-choice, I could say, well, I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry, ma'am. Those are great questions, and I know that that's maybe really important to you when you're selecting a candidate, but there's really nothing to talk about. Connecticut's very firm on our laws. Roe versus Wade. At that point, I said, stupid me. I said, it's not going to be overturned. I would say now, in retrospect, I feel like an idiot because I felt so firm that there was no way that all these laws could be ever. So you don't have to say overturned, but you can say, look, that's not in my purview. That's not something that council is really participating in. That's not that's a great question for a state rep or for the governor or for a congressperson. There's nothing wrong saying that. Most people don't know what a council person does. Most people have no idea that you don't have anything to do when it comes to those big picture like immigration reform. And honestly, you're not in a major city. So if you want to take a stand on immigration reform, great. As a candidate, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're not really in a position to say, well, we're going to be a sanctuary city, because you're not a city. And realistically, why would you put yourself in a position for your slate to be on the top of the controversial issues when you have other stuff going on, like the school board and funding? I'm not saying not be you, be organic, but just remember that there's ways to be you that don't invite in more criticism that you need. So just a heads up. Any questions on messaging?
Usually the messaging of someone else speaking canvassing, well, talking to people.
Yeah, you,
Yes.
so this should
Well,
be
that's not the
complete.
question. The question is, I'm one of the lower ticket candidates, in fact, I think I'm the lowest one, right?
No.
Oh, really?
It just starts with those things.
Oh, no, I'm not prioritizing, but I am one, and I'm running unopposed, so
Okay.
yay me. And, and I do have political experience, but more on a national level, just like you did, I did the campaign for Hillary Clinton, as well as Obama and Philly. And I'm learning how to scale it down myself and everybody. And the idea is, what is someone who's on the lower tickets can do when if you know, we make our mayor and town council, which I think are both, not just the mayor, but the town council, have to be made strong, and what can I do as a lower campaign ticket, who is running unopposed, which I've been taught, I'm gonna say the community for 20 years, I don't wanna talk to people, to make the ticket stronger for those who are wishy-washy about voting for off-year elections to begin with, because we are all running for an off-year election that most people in America still tend to think of as a not big priority because they think voting for president.
So, you still, even though you're unopposed, it's still good practice, and you definitely have to have the message for the whole slate, so you know, you're at the door having a conversation with other people who are running, top of the ticket or council, you should have some sort of knowledge of why they're running, because they're gonna ask you. People are gonna ask you. If you make the conversation about other people and not about yourself, which is fine. Even if you're a candidate, get it out of the way. When you knock on the door, hello, how are you? I'm running for assessments and appeal. Just say it really quickly and move on. It's like a blur because you know you're unopposed, so just move quickly on into the meat and the gravy and say, I'm really here to support my fellow Democrats who are running, who are wonderful, and I really want to highlight Tom. He's an awesome, person. He's done X, Y, and Z. And then from that, you can build on to your message that you framed and created as a group.
Two other quick questions. Because this is an off-year election, the quickest time possible to say this is how we get things done. Because most people still think it's just a simple off-year election. And so what is this still particular trend still happening and occurring after 2016? Or has a lot of people felt that they can get more involved? Because that is also the message we, as our candidates, need to get out to Milford. This
Don't do
election
it.
is just what?
Don't do it.
Of saying, please, we need your vote?
No, not call the question, but don't do a reference of 2016.
No,
and
I
Trump
don't intend to do that.
Okay.
I'm just saying, this is why these votes are most important.
Yeah.
See it.
You're framing the choice. You're explaining to someone. I just gave you an example of why this person's amazing. You call the question, you ask them, are you going to vote and support a Democrat? Don't forget to ask. You have to ask. If you walk away and you didn't ask them if they're going to support a Dem, or if they're going to vote Row 8, or if they're going to vote for, what's your name?
Exactly.
So then you wasted your time. Basically, you wasted a door.
I was gonna say, the reason why we use the ban is so that we target likely voters. We're not targeting unlikely voters, so when you're in front of these people, no, I know, but I'm saying, just for those that aren't aware, we're not going out and talking. The ban helps us so that we avoid the door where someone only votes once every decade.
Yeah.
So, we're.
Let's move on
Your
into
message will be
field
there.
then. So my bread and butter, what I get paid the big bucks for is field. This is where I'm good at. Some people are good at fundraising. I'm okay at fundraising, but field is my jam. Can we skip fundraising? Everyone should know that they should at least raise like $250. Is that? I didn't have like a conversation with your leaders beforehand as to the targets, but whatever targets they gave you, stick to them. take it seriously. If you have the ability to donate that amount yourself, awesome. But it is always good practice to talk to as many people as possible. Think of every dollar that you get, every small donation, as an opportunity to get another voter. That's why Bernie and now Beto make such a big deal. Like, I've got, 20 million small donations. Well, they're not just saying I have $20 million. They're saying I spoke to or reached out to this many people, and this many people are willing to believe in my cause enough to give me this much money. So it is a good gauge, especially for those of you who are starting at a lower level seat and have the intention of maybe doing more difficult seats like council or board selectmen. I don't know your structure if you have council here, right?
Yeah.
So if you're gonna scale up in another election year, the gauge of if you're ready to is money. How much money you can raise. If you created the very first thing that people ask you is not the message in the box, not messaging. The very first thing in any campaign training is called your life list. Other people have different names. It's literally writing down who do you know on a piece of paper. And if that piece of paper of who you know, even if for a small town, let's say a town has only 15,000 people, if you don't come up with 50 names, forget it. Like, you shouldn't run. You should join a club or going to whatever faith community you attend and being more present and grow that life list. Because politics is difficult and you're not going to get anywhere if you don't know people. You need people to get the vote, to get the funding, to send mailers. So if you're running for, what position are you running for?
Board of Assessment Appeals.
Board of Assessment Appeals. Okay, bottom of the ticket, unopposed. I would still like, as a campaign manager, a list of 200 people that you know. If you can come up with a list of 200 people that you know, this includes friends, family. They don't have to necessarily be from the district. Just people that you know that are willing to give you $5. I think that's a good gauge of, like, you've got something going on, you can help your fellow, DTCers. If you're bottom of the ticket and you get to 50 people, awesome. But if you can't even get to 50, it's like, why are you running? Like, why are you here? For higher, top of the ticket, you should surpass 200. You should at least know 250, 300 people, and that's going to give you a good gauge of how much money you can raise. If you're brand new and you're not even sure that you're going to get enough traction to be a viable candidate, but you're going to give it your all anyways, then after this election cycle, a good suggestion to practice your fundraising, and other than going to random community organizations that you've never been part of, like maybe you don't want to join a board, then maybe fundraise for something that you're passionate about. Pick a charity, maybe a 5K or a turkey trot, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be athletic, but if you use those charities, then you have a good gauge of how many people are willing to give you money. You can start creating a list from asking people to give to this charity, and you can use that information for when you run again, just to start off. If you already are connected to a community of faith, if you're already a board member on a community board, then that could be your launch pad. If there's an issue in your town that's a hot topic, like the funding for schools, and you want to become an activist on that issue, then why not create a gathering? A lot of different communities created huddles after Trump got elected. They also started Pantsuit Nation. Pantsuit Nation is a little, maybe it's not as appealing because it's Hillary centered, but you can call it, our community group or whatever name you want, and that might be your launch pad to start gathering information about people, being true to the cause that you're passionate about. And of course, you've got the DTC. So this is a network. No one here should tell me that they don't know at least 50 people, because you're all part of the DTC, and already through the DTC, you should know at least, 49 other Democrats. I'm hoping. I'm hoping. Maybe you don't know them all by name, first and last, but maybe by face, and then you start doing the homework of like, oh, what's that person's last name? Make an Excel spreadsheet. That way you never lose it. It's already organized, alphabetized. Add in phone numbers, add in addresses. All that information you can use during Get Out the Vote, close to election time, to remind people. And you send them personalized note cards saying, hey, don't forget to vote. And with the Excel spreadsheet, you can send it over to a print shop. They can print it out for you. If you don't want to do the handwriting, that's fine. Personalized is always better. If you're willing to pay for those postcards, even better, because it's not on the dime of the DTC, or it's not coming out of the amount of money that you raise. It's an in-kind contribution. But if you have a big list, if you have more than 100 people that you can mail and remind, please don't forget to vote, then bulk is always cheaper than buying postcards that say vote for me and then writing on them. If you do a bulk print or if you do a slate piece with the picture of everyone, it's much cheaper to do that than do individual photo pieces for each person. So on field. So imagine a reality that you already did messaging, you raise your 250, you're good, you're already knocking doors, and you're doing field, and you're wondering, am I gonna win? So I'm sad to be the bearer of bad news, but politics and campaigns can be summed up all to math. So I'm not saying that political analysts who do algorithms on who's going to win the presidential are always accurate. When you do polls, it's a snapshot of that moment. It doesn't necessarily know it doesn't tell you who's going to win the day of the election. But when you do your win number, when you do field, it's math and logic. There is a certain amount of people who are registered. There are a certain amount of people who are not going to vote for you, and there's a certain amount of people that no matter what you do, will never participate. When you start adding those numbers, you might take a step back and say, we don't have the numbers to win. How can we actually get the numbers to win? Well, that's when you have to do a voter registration plan of how to campaign. Or that's when you have to start targeting people who are unaffiliated, because there's no way that you have a plan to win when you don't have enough Democrats registered in town to just win with them. Even if you had a Democratic majority in your town, which you don't, you have an unaffiliated majority in your town that I looked into, it doesn't mean that you're not going to win. You just have to work a little harder, obviously, to convince those people who are unaffiliated or independent, and put in air quotes because some people are truly independent and then there's other people that are just truly Republicans. But we take that chance, right? We take third-party people, we take the unaffiliated, and then we mix them together with the Democrats in order to buff our universe, so we have enough people to give us a window to win. So, when you're looking at your win number, it's the amount of people who are currently registered to vote. You don't add in, with this win number, you don't add in people who you're going to register. There's no maybe next time or maybe tomorrow, no. It's an accurate reading from your last election of who participated. So during your last municipal election, who voted, take 50% of that plus 1, because that's what you need to win. Some people add a 5 to 10% buffer on that number. So let's say you have 14,000 registered voters in town. Out of those 14,000 voters, you had voter turnout, 10,000 voters who actually turned out in a municipal election last time. You want to maybe look at 2 municipal elections to gauge to see if an anomaly happened, if those numbers fluctuate, or if they stay strong. Was it 10,000 2 years ago? Was it 15,000? What was the difference between? And that's how you determine how much of a buffer. So I know that for almost every town in Connecticut, the minute Trump got elected, it kind of like pivoted, it altered the voter turnout. His candidacy, the amount of Republicans who turned out, you can't use the presidential election year for Trump as a good gauge of voter turnout because it was an anomaly. So you'd want to go a little further. With the municipal cycle, did anything weird happen last election here? No, okay. So use your a lot of money.
page.
Why?
Yeah, why?
So they want to get rid of the Democrat, that's what they do.
Oh, so they put, okay, they got to work.
Small number of people that they found.
Okay. So that doesn't matter for win number. Look at your last municipal election, the last 2 municipal elections, and then you want 50% of voter turnout plus 1, that's your win number, and give yourself a 5 to 10 buffer. And that's what makes the universe. So then, once you have that win number and you can say, oh, I need, or our slate needs 10,000 people to go and vote to win. Or I, as a candidate, just my seat, I need 2,000 people to win. Why does that matter? Because if you don't have that number, you have no idea how many doors you need to knock. You just can't go out without a plan and say, I'm gonna knock every door. Well, yeah, people say that, they're super enthusiastic beginning of summer, and then a month later, they're like, wow, knocking doors kinda sucks. I'm not gonna knock on that many doors. Or people come in wholeheartedly saying, I'm gonna knock on every single Democratic door in town. Well, yeah, it's not realistic. 1, you're wasting time on Dems that are gonna vote for you anyways, and 2, you don't have enough Dems in this town to win. So this is why you need to know your universe, and this is why you need to have a plan. So first pass, second pass, third pass. For people who have a organized campaign, meaning you have some volunteers, you have some DTCers who are willing to door knock, you have the ability to go through your full universe 1 time, 2 times, and 3 times. Ideally, in any campaign, you want to go 3 times, so that by the time you have Get Out the Vote, GOTV, a week and a half before election, you can say, oh, on my first, second, and third pass to these same voters, we found out that out of our 10,000 people, 6,000 of them said they verbalized they will vote Democratically. So that way, GOTV, you're only going to people who told you that they're going to vote for you. If you don't do a first or a second pass, when you get Out the Vote, you're wasting your time on people who might not vote for you. That's why the passes matter. This is called a grassroots campaign. People who don't do a grassroots campaign tend to have more money in their campaign and then put their efforts rather than door knocking, they put it into leaflets, media, advertising, house parties. That's usually how the Republicans campaign. They don't do a big, massive door knocking effort. They put they raise lots of money and they put it everywhere else. Bunch of lawn signs. They do phone banking, but they don't tend to pound the pavement, as they say. If you don't have enough time, so also important to have your universe and your win number, how do you create a calendar? So let's erase. If I want to win, and I know I have to do door knocks to the same person that I'm targeting 1, 2, 3 times in preparation for GOTV, if I don't know my win number, if I don't know who my universe is, then when I'm creating a calendar, I have no idea what these days look like. But when you know your win number, and you don't start your calendar from today on, you go backwards. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then no primaries here, right?
No.
No primaries, okay. So imagine that above this was a full calendar between now and election day. You know that GOTV week is two weeks, a week and a half, give or take. So this section of the calendar is off limits. You're not doing a first or second pass, that should be done. But by this time, if your target universe is 10,000 people by election day, and you know, so let's do another.
So I have a question.
Yep.
If someone says they're going to vote for you the first time you go to the door, why do you need to go back the second and third time?
because any campaigner will always tell you it takes 6 to 9 times to repeat that information to them before they actually vote for you. So behavioral analysts, political analysts have made studies for the last 2 decades, and they've come up with the same conclusion that even your most well-intentioned person will forget to vote unless they're reminded 6 to 9 times. That another reason why you have first, second, third pass is those passes will act like a touch. A touch is every time that you contact and remind a person to go and vote for you. And a touch is every time that person says, yes, I will vote Democratic.
And that could be viewed by the homeowner as harassment by someone who keeps knocking on the door.
Anyone who tells you by GOTV that they're being harassed and they're not going to vote for you because they're being harassed, they're on some bullshit.
They're what?
They're on some BS. It's not true.
Okay.
Anyone telling you, yes, they're being harassed, fine, and they're really annoyed, but again, people smarter than me, behavior analysts, have studied that when someone tells you, I'm not going to vote for you because you're harassing me, they're lying. They're going to vote. So you want to be on the brink of harassment. That means you did your job.
Are they gonna vote for you?
Oh yeah, do not waste your time. If someone, the very first time you went to their door, told you flat out, I will no longer support Democrats ever, take their word and do not waste your time to go back to that person. And don't even try. I know some of you in here want to debate them and convince them. No! Why would you? You have thousands of other people, and maybe the position you're running for, you don't have thousands of people, maybe all you need is 1,000 people, fine. But just like our brother right here, who's understanding the cause, he's gonna door knock for all of you. So if you're in that mind frame of team and collaboration, then yes, do not waste more than 5 minutes at a door. Do not try to convince or debate. Move on, write it down, thank them for their time, and to the next door.
If I can reiterate some politics, anyone who's running here, this is a great way of finding out how are you perceived by the public. When you talk to them, when you communicate with them, such as when you stood up today, the first thing I saw was you saying, and most campaigners say, get rid of those ahs, look a little more confident, get out there, speak to them. They're going to remember you, but all of us, of how we communicate and how you listen. If that person looks a little bit more like you're over here, I know we've already gotten in touch with you. We're just going around through the area again to say, keep the vote up. We're probably gonna give you one more call, just go with us because we need those votes. It's repetition, 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 which is 101 in marketing, whether it's politics, advertising, all of it.
If you're a chatty Cathy, practice in front of a mirror. I know it sounds silly. Practice in front of a mirror, doing your 1.5 stump speech, doing your 3-minute stump speech, and make sure that you time yourself to cut yourself off. And just get in that routine. Or practice with a family member or a friend to cut you off and say, you just spoke for 5 minutes and you didn't even realize it. If you're not charismatic, that's fine. There is no one shape fits all kind of politician. And yes, I know that word sounds derogatory at this point, politician, but you're in this room, politician, it's the reality, you're running for something. If you're not charismatic, that's fine. The number one rule of being a good organizer is someone who can listen. And it doesn't matter what you're running for, you're here to represent people. So you should be able to take a step back and understand where that person's coming from. If you're at that door, all you really need to do is be able to give your name, say your name, remind them and ask them if they're gonna vote. And if the rest of the conversation is that person literally divulging every last little nook and cranny of their life, you wanna cut them off, I'm sorry. It's so sad, you're gonna have some crazy stories, but that's okay. That's okay, because even if you didn't have a conversation about politics at all, and that person just talked about their grandkids, and they needed that human contact, they're most likely gonna remember you over someone else, because you gave them the time of day. And if you think it's a quality conversation, again, because that person just needs that human contact, and it went to 10 minutes, I know, you gotta cut them off, but at least walk away knowing that you had a good conversation. So it's not the end of the world. Just try to be cognizant of how long you talk or how long you're at a door. And people get it. If you see that voter ID shows you from previous elections, they vote every time. If you tell them, look, I gotta get to the next door, but let me get your number so we can continue this conversation, I would love that. People really understand that, and they don't give you grief about it. So, back to the calendar, and the reality that, and the reality that this calendar was super big from now to election day. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just an example. So every day between now and election day, when you start doing the math of 10,000, do you know how many registered voters here? 15,000.
15,300.
Okay. So if you have 15,000 voters, then the breakdown is probably going to be like 7,000. Let me see, 5,000 Republican, 4,000 Democrat, and then everyone else is unaffiliated. Yeah. So when you start looking at those numbers and you see how many hours you can door knock in a day, you as one person, and you're like, wow, I can do 20 doors a day if I'm really diligent, 20 doors, and have to take in consideration that each door is far away from each other. So 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. And you're going backwards, right? GOTV and working yourself up. You will realize that it is mathematically impossible for your little legs to door knock enough doors to get to everyone. So then you're thinking, if I have to reach in order to be part of the team and win, and we want to hit 10K is probably wrong. I'm thinking it's probably going to be lower, probably 6,000. For mayor, yeah. Okay. So target, we'll switch it to 7. For bottom of the ticket, you're looking at 1,000 or less, but 7. Okay. So 7K. Still, with 7K, there's no way one of you can do all those doors at this point of the game. If you wanted to do every single door because that that was your goal, you would have had to start in February. No, I'm telling you from experience. I door knocked for my state rep seat in Newtown, 9,000 people by myself, and I started end of February. That's one pass. So obviously you can't get there by yourself. So to make the math work, 20 plus 20 plus 20, and you're wondering how many volunteers do I need in order to get to 7K, then you start dividing that 7K by days and by volunteers. So if Susie's gonna do 20 with me and I'm gonna do 20, then we're at 40. If Tom's gonna do 20, and then so on and so forth until you get to 7K, you go backwards and then you know how many people you need and how many passes you need. Little much? You with me?
Yeah.
I'm assuming from experience that in order to have a successful campaign with this number, you need at least, it's gonna sound low, about 10 volunteers, realistically, because there's so many candidates. So if everyone in this room plus one of your friends each, you should be able to win. You should be. But that's in a reality that each person is doing 20 a day. What's gonna end up happening, the real story is Susie can't do 20 today, she can't do 20 Wednesday, she can't do 20 on Friday. We start late on Saturday, we only did 10, and so on and so forth. And by the time you hit GOTV, you have only hit 3,000 doors. So that's why you want to recruit as many volunteers as possible. Not every volunteer is into door knocking. You have some people who love phone banking. You never turn away someone. Every volunteer is gold. Put them to work. I don't care what you're gonna have them do. If they're putting stamps and taking them, peeling them off and putting them back on, then okay. Okay, because because at the end of the day, they're here for the cause, and there's people that are in the campaign headquarters who are just there to chat and, you know, touch base with you. And you might think that peeling off that stamp, and I'm not, you laugh at that, but that's a job I actually gave someone. I said, peel the stamp off, because we coded it wrong, and I'm like, and put it onto another envelope. And people who came and volunteered every day appreciated, what's her name? Oh my God, she had a weird name. Oh my God, she has this is 6 years ago. She was wonderful. She had a weird name. It was like Marigru or so. People saw her as a staple of the office, and they came to the office and greeted her, and she greeted them. And maybe she wasn't, you know, our top canvasser, and she wasn't our top phone banker, but she made the atmosphere lighthearted. And in a campaign, when you feel very alone and you're putting a lot of hours and you're tired and you feel like no one's doing as much work as you, it is nice to have a volunteer be there until 9 o'clock, even if they're putting stamps on an envelope. So don't turn anyone away. Try to find jobs for people. You might not have a campaign headquarters, and if you do, it might only be for the last 2 or 3 weeks of the campaign. That's fine. In the meantime, you can use someone's house or your own house. Find a space where you can just set up shop. It could be in your living room, and just put a folding table there in the corner and put your envelopes and your stamps and all your materials in the corner and prepare for the day. A good job for younger volunteers, teenagers who are not quite of door knocking age. Door knocking age depends on the parent, not on you. It depends on the teenager and the parent. I started door knocking at 12. Some people said I was astute, or what was the word, precocious. I don't know. I like talking. They put me to work. So in Hartford, it's a different setting where I grew up than here. You might not be comfortable as a parent having a 12-year-old go door to door with those long driveways. But maybe 15 might work, or maybe pair them up with an older cousin or an older aunt for that day, or someone that they trust. I would stay away from pairing up young people or minors with strangers. You want to avoid, I know that we all trust each other and you never want to get into a scandal, but just to avoid any of that, make sure that they're going with a family member. And they should definitely not go unattended. If they're 14, 15, here in this setting, I think it's smarter to go with an adult that they know rather than just go solo. If you feel super confident and the parent feels comfortable, then that's on them, that's their call, that's not on you. But you do want to avoid your campaign and your slate having any liability issues or safety issues. I push it to the brink on what time I stop. I always stop at around 8:45, even when it gets closer to fall. People criticize me all the time about that. After 7:30, because it's getting dark so early in the fall time, I use the line for literally an hour. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, it's so late, it's so dark. Oh, you're my last door, and I just made it up your driveway, and I didn't have the heart to turn back. That's on you. A better use of your time if you're fearful about door knocking in the dark would be phone banking. So stop, have a hard stop the minute it gets dark, go back to your house or go back to the office and use that remaining hour to phone bank. Don't go home. Too many times I've seen candidates are like, oh, it's dark, so I'm done for the day. Well, do you want to win? Do you see these 20s? Like, no, don't go. Like, if you don't have an environment in your house to make phone calls, you sit in your car, no idling, we care about the environment. You sit in your car and you finish your list for an hour. If that's what it takes. If you have to go to like Stop and Shop and like hover in the quiet, I don't know, you figure it out, but do not stop at 7:30. You want to stop at 8:30. If you push it further than that, that's on you. Some people will scream at you if you get to 8:45, 9 o'clock. People get angry. Same with phone banking. If you're hovering 8:15, 8:20, and you can already hear the tone of people saying, why are you calling me this late? Just use the line, you're my last call, I'm so sorry it's so late, I didn't realize how late it was. You take them off guard, and they're more willing to have a quick conversation with you. Never start any interaction on the phone or on the doors with, do you have a minute? You're not asking permission for their time. You're not asking to talk to them. You are talking to them. you made it to that, you dialed that number, you made it to that driveway, yes, we're having this conversation right now. There's no, open the door, no. This is where you have to get a little pushy and you hold the door gently and you say hello, when they open the door. If they take it back, then that's fine, but you want to make sure that you have that human interaction. Don't knock like a police officer, knock lightly. Don't do repeated doorbells. If you're in a condo area or an apartment complex, creative ways to get in. I know this is, again, people, I do it all the time. I do it for work. I ring all of them. I ring all of them, but whatever. Yeah. You need to get in. You need to get in. Yeah.
I have a question about one of the 7 contacts. A lot of them are gonna have, calling card, some kind of card. And what if your no one answers the door? And some places are hard to do this, but you leave handwritten message.
Absolutely do a handwritten message. I would even say that the night before, prepare your packet that of your leave behind and sign every last one of them. You don't want to do 1,000 at a time. That's crazy. It's overwhelming. But if you do 20 every night, the night before, 20 here, 20 there, the amount of doors that you're going to do the next day, and you sign them. Sorry, I missed you, or hey, this is Bob, and you sign it at the end. Then it's ready to go the very next day that you canvass, and then you leave it. Yes, and your 6 to 9 touches could be phone calls. It could be door knocks. They also count touches as any time that mailer hits their house. I know that it's not a gauge of how they're gonna vote, but that is a touch. So it's a numbers and monies game. The more money you have, the more touches you have, because that means that you have the ability to mail people more often. When you're looking at 7,000 for top of the ticket, then I would say an appropriate amount of money that would make sense for this campaign is a minimum of 30 grand. Because 30 grand will give you 2 mailers and maybe like a space to do this and like miscellaneous GOTV stuff. You want at least 2 mailers. For everyone else, because you're in smaller seats and you're raising like $250, $200, then I'm thinking realistically with a DTC you might have the money to do is 1 mailer, and that means you have to up your game with a phone bank or a door knock. This is all dependent on what your leadership decides. Yep.
What about mass media, like, not newspapers, but TV?
No,
Very expensive.
no, there's no way any campaign in Connecticut that's not gubernatorial can afford that. There's no way, unless you're Luke Ronan in Hartford and you're Mr. Moneybags. It's not realistic. We're in a media market that's one of the most expensive in the country. We're sandwiched between Massachusetts and New York. When you're looking at ad buys for real TV, not, you can do public access or you can do some weird cable channel, but real TV, prime time, just one ad for a minute, you're looking at $40. Like, it is just, forget it, man. Forget it. It's thousands and thousands of dollars. I spent 20 grand and I only got 4 commercials. Yeah, so don't do it.
Well, I spent something like that and focused it on the TV. That was for mayor. But the group could, people do look at those CNN.
No, I'm not saying that they don't. They do. I'm just saying that that's a lot of money and that you can be using that money for door knockers. So in a reality that you don't have that many volunteers, you can use that money to hire paid door knockers through the party, through the Democratic Party, to door knock for you. There's there's campaign managers that do this for you, and that way this 20 person number that you have will up within a week. Professional door knockers who do this, their numbers are not 20 a day. They're averaging 40, 50 people a day because they can start earlier. This is a job, they're trained, they're just more efficient.
What does that cost?
So that's actually not that bad. Depending on who you use, I think Mike Mandel is starting with his campaign. He has a firm. Mike Mandel has a firm. Then there's there's some people I don't like that I don't want to recommend. But DNA campaign. For me not to be biased, I think you should contact the Connecticut Democratic Party. They will give you a vendor list, but the average cost is $27 a week for one canvasser for one round. So if you add more rounds, so a round is a day, so you're looking at $27 a day for a target of 40 to 50 people. And the cost differentiates by like dollars. Yeah, it's pretty cheap.
For different hours,
Lately.
$7. It's like wait.
I don't run these operations, I've just hired them. So,
A lot of
the last time I hired them, I hired the Working Families Party, and they were the cheapest, and I know that they paid their canvassers $15 an hour. I'm guessing their rates are that cheap, one, because they're subsidizing it, and I think you can only use their services if you're cross-endorsed. So it's obviously more money, but they're paying more money for their operation, but they believe in the cause. And for other companies, if they're not necessarily directly through the Democratic Party, they're gonna be more expensive. But I've never seen them be more than 30. I've never. Not even the Farinas of the world.
It was full time.
They call it a session. They guarantee you a session. They guarantee you 40 to 50 touches. So when you're a professional canvasser, for a normal person, it's a day that it takes that long to do it. For a professional canvasser, it's a couple hours. So, yeah.
The social media count.
Oh, so back to your comment/question and connecting it with advice. Because TV is so expensive, I wouldn't suggest bottom of the ticket even dabbling in that, but definitely do social media and boosting for Facebook. Super cheap, well worth it. I would invest in targeted social media. So put your area, put very specific teachers, targeting teachers. You have the ability to even target age, the gender, into the minutia, they're very good at their targeting, and why not? And I will definitely advise to do geolocating. So let's say you're door knocking an area of 300 homes, and you have 20 volunteers to do these 300 homes on a weekend on a Saturday, and everyone showed up. Then set it up that at that time, that 300 home radius, you're geolocating ads of your slate, you're like a banner ad. So every time a house is going into New York Times, they're looking up the Hartford Current, they're shopping for, Zulily, I don't know. They can be in their PJs, they see your slate banner ad run, and you happen to be door knocking their home, and they're like, oh my God, what's the coincidence? I just saw this ad at my house. And like, that's kind of freaky. Well, they should really, delete their cookies. It's cheap, it's dirt cheap. You get connected for geolocation, there's geolocation targeting firms, use CT Dems as your contacts, because again, I'm not here to give you a biased opinion of who to use and who not to use. I have people that I hate. And that, by the way, my hate on my bias has nothing to do with performance. And I said Farina, it's how they handle their campaigns with people. And I will gladly say Farina, I'll call them out on it. Dan Wu's campaign in Middletown was ridiculous. You're not supposed to mail, it is obvious that you're not supposed to mail people who are public employees, and I think that's kind of slimy. So, other than that, go to CT Dems, and they'll give you a nice vendor list, and you make a decision of who's cheaper, who's good, and they're all good enough, so why not? Yeah.
I was gonna say for Facebook, if you guys are thinking of doing that, you wanna do that, always, you put anything up and like, ooh, want to boost this, it could reach this many people, blah, blah, blah. If you're a political thing, which everyone in this room is, you now have to fill out a bunch of stuff.
That's true.
and then send to them. So the week before the 23rd, I was trying to find more people. I'm from the town of Plymouth, I'm the chair. And it was like, you have to fill out all this stuff, and then you're gonna send a code, and then you have to fill in that code, and then after it, I fill out more stuff. It was like, Facebook's gonna send you a letter to your home. I got that letter 6 days ago.
Yeah.
So I was unable to do it, and every day, the last 6 days, like, ready to boost your clothes, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't need you anymore. But for other stuff, if you do it in advance, I'm saying, so even if it's just you, pay for your group, and that way, if you put it up, then you'll be ready to do it, and you won't need that confirmation. They literally sent me something from one hacker away in California, and it's 5 numbers on a piece of paper. And that's all I needed to actually get my message out to my geo-targeted area, because you just put so many miles to encompass the tiny town of Plymouth. And I would have had it out there while someone's looking for a feed on whatever the hell Trump said tonight.
Don't want to go through the hassle of Facebook or the additional layer of trying to do ad buys, then everything can be done with the slate with the DTC. So if you're bottom of the ticket, you're a small seat, Board of Assessment Appeals, zoning, even Board of Finance, that's not small, that's pretty important. But still, if you don't want to go into the intricacies of social media, then use your page to promote yourself. Don't do a political page. Do some blasts about, we have this happy hour house party that we're doing, or tell people about events, and do that rather than doing the designated page, because you do have to.
Right. Do one of those talks things, but don't have it be someone's having a garage sale. Make it where the discussion can be that. Don't file it up.
And then boost through your DTC.
Yeah.
Next week, I'm hosting a social media event, because that's what I've used for 15 years as a comedian. And I'm going to be using it to train, to boost up the canvassing as a canvassing tool, and how to be more social. This also teaches the candidate when you see yourself in pictures. Again, this is how the public is going to see. I'm going to put an Instagram story out of how to talk, and you'll see the plan next week of what I have for taking them have to transfer it over from entertainment to politics. But this is the new way we're doing it. It's what got Obama elected, it's what got Trump elected. But it's also going to benefit you when you win your seats to keep in touch with people about your policies. Town council meetings coming up, because it's not going to want to get the newspaper. It is the new way to get right.
If you don't have any social media as of now, don't bother. Facebook, Instagram, all those work on algorithms of popularity. If you don't have anything to create the kind of algorithm that you need to make it matter for your election, takes work. So start it now with the intention of growing something for the future. Honestly.
I think the lesson I learned from that then is to really go with what the DTC has done, and then also save our board of ed. So Canada shouldn't be wasting time.
Yeah, if you have a social media page, don't be so bogged down by, am I doing the right picture, or am I posting enough? I think to get into the habit of being a good social media user is a lot of work. You have to go to trainings to use it. I will never say I'm an expert. I will tell you some truths here. I'm very good at social media, very good, because I have interns that do it for me. So everyone says, oh my God, you're everywhere. I flag all the posts and I flag all the snippets. I write the content, but they're the ones who post, because I'm horrible at social media. I have no interest. The only reason I have social media is because of that political persona. And I know that if I shut it down, even though I'm not running for anything, it's a disservice for all the other organizations that tag me and like me, considering that I have a wider reach than most people. So I thought about shutting it down. If you're very good at social media, keep posting, keep using it, and then tell your DTCers to tag you, so that way you bump up on the algorithm.
When you're suggesting if you don't already have that presence, you can hold off, are you saying if you don't already have a personal individual?
I'm saying if you don't have anything at all. Let's say you've never opened an account, this is not the moment to start learning how to use Facebook.
So I have a personal page,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm very tangy on Instagram and Twitter, but I'm very private, so I don't like to, because I have children, I don't like to accept friend requests, for example, from people that I don't actually
That used to be me.
know in real life. So how do I think about that? Because the people that know
Then
me,
you
they
can
know
set
what
up
I
a
stand
slate.
for.
Make
Make
sure-
it-
Right.
Just
Go.
meet with the DTC and the,
Yeah.
save our school budget.
I mean, I feel like
Pages.
Then you can
They'll
see your
do it.
clickable page.
They'll do it.
I feel very well known, it's just, I know there's been discussion
But
of
wait,
setting up a.
Is your hesitation altering your universe where you're in a place that makes you feel uncomfortable?
Yes. So that's why I'm wondering, should I set up a separate
Than
candidate
the
page?
CTC. Because even if you set up a candidate page, you'll be back in that place of, I don't feel
Getting
comfortable.
to grow, but you'll also be back with getting to grow. So, like, my safety car school budget group is great, but it's only gonna reach those 700 people in there because it's private. And it's closed.
But the DTC
So-
is not.
The DTC
It's
is
not.
not, exactly, so in combination, that's great. But for you, I would say, yeah, do it, because you're gonna wanna keep in touch with people who do go for you and maybe promote it and you're out there. Get all your current friends and family to like it, the more likes it gets,
Yeah,
it starts to grow that way, ask them to ask their friends to like it, hey, I'm supporting this candidate, you know, you share it.
So a candidate.
in all honesty,
But it's not gonna get, that's not gonna make a difference for you this campaign.
No, it's not.
But it's a great way to start conversations and yeah.
honestly, if you should, everyone should highly consider, if you have social media, getting more comfortable with the idea of posting political stuff. Because in a situation that you're elected, this is a very good vehicle to connect with constituents, honestly. I know it's about a comfort zone. If you do the political page, you'll separate those two worlds, but you are literally doing yourself a disservice as a candidate and as a politician, not accessing that world.
And I can definitely show you, I've taken safety into consideration, we will talk about that next Wednesday. But be aware, like we talked about at the last meeting, the majority of the abuse that's gonna be given is not gonna be to anyone in this room, it's gonna be to Tom O'Brien's man who's running for mayor. He's gonna get 95% of all the abuse, the top ticket will, but we will make sure to protect it. If you don't want your own page, fine, but we will put your name with the slate, we will do a slate page. So we understand it because we need to bring more of the lower tier group, and that's fine, but we need that strength in numbers. No one needs to know your parent, we'll find, we'll
I
talk
mean, I
about it.
think everyone gets it.
I understand what you're saying, though, I understand.
It's also.
You can
I
do
use
ground
it for work,
rules.
I use it
You
for
can
all kinds of
do
things.
ground rules, and if you separate and you create a political page, you can make sure that no one, it's not an open forum, you can block and just, you can put
allow
it,
yourself to post.
correct, only allow yourself to post,
Or allow
not
yourself
open
to
dialogue.
you have to approve the thing.
If you're not into social media at all, and you do have social media and you just use it to connect with family members, then yes, use the DTC. It's too intricate to start getting into the habit of screening what people post. I've seen, I'll use Newtown as an example. In our Board of Ed, there was a post about our funding and the Sandy Hook School, and it turned into basically an inquisition, and what resulted was someone having to resign from the Board of Ed. For all the good that social media does, there is bad, and you can't erase any of this information, and you have no control of who saw what when. So, in order to isolate and make sure that you're keeping to your message, then you block off posts, and you could only post, that way people can't post or tag you. But it allows you to do that. If you invite those kind of conversations and you want the open dialogue and you're curious to see where it goes, then just make sure that you're monitoring it, because if you're putting information out there and people are bombarding with negative, racist comments, there can be some nasty stuff out there said, and if you're not monitoring, it looks really bad. It makes you look like a fool, and that's not what you want. It's having the inverse effect, so just be aware.
They're out there too.
They are,
They're gonna
they
hammer
are.
you for anything.
I
I tried
had
to
a
put
troll.
stuff on our public page stuff, like Plymouth Speaks, Terrible Talks, all this stuff. Less than 3 minutes after I put it, and I put a whole thing about, we're looking for unaffiliated voters, you matter too, you don't have to pick a side. Show up, have your voice be heard. And they're like, take it down, where's the administrator, I vote we get rid of it, no politics. Next you're gonna be talking about how you hate Trump or whatever. I'm like, well, you know who that guy is. But like, they hammer you, they don't want anything to do with it. So you make your own, you do have to police it. Think about making a private Gmail or something for people to bring questions only to that.
A private one, it's just, that was my question, should I have a private one that's separate from my regular one?
I do it just for the campaign.
Just for the campaign one.
Yeah, for the campaign.
Separate your
Win or lose, like she's saying, you leave it open, you don't drop the content. If you win, you can use it as a way for anyone to find you as a newly elected officer. If you lose, you keep it on the toast, don't put like 2019.
Yeah.
Keep it on the side burner. If you want to run for this again, it's ready to go.
On my council page, I always had it open, but I always had it open where people can have conversations and post whatever they wanted and tag me on anything. But I did that because I had people monitoring it. There was no moment that I would be unaware of what was happening on my page.
Right.
And there was a troll that started the conversation with, she's a communist, and then, and then derogatory language, and then she, within the course of 48 hours, went to talking about my sister, who's a councilwoman in Hartford, and saying vile things about her. And I'm guessing she was Googling my family, and she's like, oh, and the Chef versus O'Neill case, like desegregation, who needs that in Newtown, like really nasty stuff. So she didn't realize this is not posting an op-ed, or this is not anonymous. This is your Facebook page and it's your name. And I went into the voting record, the voter files, I looked up her name, and while she was posting, literally as she was posting, I went to her house a mile away from me. It's 10:30 in the morning, I knocked on her door, I caught her in her PJs out the window, literally posting on her cell phone. I'm like, hi! And I don't recommend this because it might not turn out as nice.
Public record.
But just know that if it's a town where you feel safe and you don't think it's going to turn nasty, and this is a woman that it's not like she's just, I don't know her, we're not obviously friends, but she owns a toy store. I felt comfortable going to her house, and she never trolled again. So just, not every scenario with trolls is the same outcome. It's not. Sometimes you should just ignore and delete.
Did she give you a reason why?
You should message. No, trolls are trolls.
Yeah,
But
back
she got
under the
called
bridge.
out. But sometimes it's helpful to start talking to them on a private message to them. Make sure you never use any lewd language, never insult them, because they can take a screenshot of whatever you say. But if you want to de-escalate it, just do it outside of your page. And know that if you delete something and they know you deleted something, that is not a de-escalation. You're making it worse, they're going to troll some more. So be careful. Yeah. We're out of time.
No, I don't know. That's a good question. How, do you have other information to share?
This is pretty much a gist. I talked about the stuff that usually campaign trainings like glaze over. Any general questions? Anything that you wanted to get out of me and you feel like I didn't really mention?
You said that because you were coming late, that you had time to talk to people.
Yeah.
So anyone who would like to stay, Eva's available, whatever.
Either or, yeah. In Romance languages and Slovak, the E is not an E, it's an F. So I didn't know.
Any other questions?
Okay. I do. Equal directly. I'm not the usual. Start times on canvassing. On the weekends, don't start before 9:45. People get pissed. But definitely you want to be at the door by 10, because the minute like 10:30, 11 hits, people are gone. They're doing their life for the weekends. For Saturdays. For Sundays, I still observe faith communities. People still do go to church or go to whatever mass they go to, and it tends to be in the morning. So I start around 11:30 for Sundays. And then for weekdays, if you have a job that allows you to door knock in the day, pick an area in your community that is known to be elderly or older age people. Start there, 9:30 there, and then go as long as you like. For regular neighborhoods, more residential, not necessarily assisted care or not an elderly neighborhood, I would start at 4:30. 4:30, you might not get everyone home, but at least you're leaving door knockers. And then the recommendation is to stop when it gets dark. Especially if you're not in a major city, you stop when it's already dark. I just push it to the brink. I'm not saying that what I do is what you should do. Everyone has their comfort level. I just want to make sure that you at least stop phone banking by 8:30. Yeah. Fridays are bad days to door knock, by the way. If you're gonna take a day off and take a breather or go to an event, do it on Friday. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
The way it always goes.
We could all.
I've never been the tall girl.
You want the minutes?
Yeah, you have to be in it too, Joe. I'm not even gonna take my, Tom, you gotta go.
You gotta get in the picture too.
And then you take.
I'll take it.
There you go.
Listen, I like the high camera.
I cut off Tom's head.
How long is his arms?
I selfie.
Tall guys in the
I
back.
cut off Tom's head.
Squeeze it like now, Joe.
I cut
I can. We'll do something this way and then I'll go out.
We'll get the table.
Cheers. Oh, we gotta take lots of pictures here. Hold on. We're doing a photo.
Then you guys have to do this again when Eva comes.
Hold on.
Zoom in, one more selfie and
Oh, Cindy, if you will, if you laugh, we'll laugh with you.
Yeah.
Want me to laugh?
Yeah, give us your laugh.
Wait,
It's a Halloween laugh.
it is. Well, you know, this was very productive because there wasn't a picture of all the candidates before. So that was very, very
yeah,
productive.
you need that.